Hello. I am not dead. I'm very much alive. Back from back from a whatever 2 year hiatus or whatever. But I do apologize for the delay. I had to return some videotapes. But I'm back. Um, and I saw a lot of movies this year. So I'm currently full of pre-workout. I just got back from the gym. I thought let's talk about them. I don't want to make a super long video, but I think we can at least do, yeah, maybe a minute or so on each of the movies I saw this year. Um, this is not an extensive list. There's a lot of things that I probably saw I forgot about. So this is just kind of off the top of my head, looking at the year end sort of lists and seeing if it jogged my memory at all. Um, I do want to say before I start that I did see Dune 2. It was long. It was very good looking. I don't remember anything. Um, I'm really not a fantasy sci-fi type guy. So I saw the first one again. I thought it was good. I couldn't tell you any of the characters. I don't remember really anything. Um, objective. I just don't feel like I can like objectively give a good opinion because it's not really my thing, and it didn't really leave an impact other than I remember being like, oh, this looks cool, but I don't know what's happening. So, all right, I am gonna start at the bottom of the year of 2024, and my bottom three or so all kind of blend together. But from what I remember, the worst thing I saw this year was Tarot, which was horrible and predictable and really did not feel like a real movie at all. It kind of just felt like it really felt like an idea sort of written by like AI or something. Like, oh, we've done all these different movies. We did, Truth or Dare. We did this. We did this. Oh, why not do a tarot card movie? And just so bad. Like, just I wish I could go more into detail, but I feel like I sort of blocked it out of my memory. Um, I, it was rough. So at least with my next couple, there were some funny bad moments. That one I was just like in awe. So um, I don't know what number this is going to be, but the next one getting progressively better was Imaginary, which also very bad. Again, didn't feel like a real movie. Just kind of felt like an AI sort of idea that came to be. Um, I don't remember that much other than it was just brutally stupid and really no scares, no stakes, no interesting characters, just spooky kid and a teddy bear, and somehow dragged that on for 90 minutes. Next up, I got Night Swim, which of the three looked the best, I would say. It also was not good, but at least there were some I don't know, interesting looking visuals at some scenes. Story really didn't make sense. It was just kind of nonsense just overall, and the big sort of Vincent D'Onofrio sinister moment where we get this old lady who basically tells us what the villain's backstory is was so funny and so on the nose. I just remember bursting into laughter, and at a certain point, I remember just banging my head against the chair when I was in theaters. So would not recommend, but it very very Blumhouse is in like would tease at an idea and then take it in a completely wrong direction. So sort of a Blumhouse staple. Next up, Madam Web, which again one of the funniest things I've seen in a really long time. Not intentionally, in like a what were they thinking and how did they mess up this bad type way. Um, the thing that was funniest to me was like so Spider Man, Madam Web, Marvel characters, right? Not in the MCU, and I think it was technically a Sony product. So when that happened, they really, you could tell, made a point to sort of distance themselves from the Spider-Man lore, and like they didn't say Peter Parker's name, but they kept like teasing at it, and The part that made me laugh the hardest was there there was a part where there was some sort of scene in uh Madam Web, before she's Madam Web, has these like powers via like flashback, I guess, sort of flash forward. Like she can kind of like That's So Raven it and see like a couple minutes into the future or something, and then be like, oh hey, step out of the way so you don't get hit by that bus. Um, but there was a scene where something happens, and the line was roughly, "When you have great power, it comes with great responsibility." Like almost the exact line from Spider-Man, but you could tell it was like, "Hey, if we change these three words, are we gonna get sued?" No. Okay, cool. So that made me laugh pretty hard. But that's like a good like midnight movie, drinking with your friends, like type of film. So I would recommend it just to watch, ironically, but in terms of it just being a movie, it was not good. Um, Next up, super hot take here. I could not stand Monkey Man. I really tried. There was one scene that I liked. Other than that, it was just slow and pretentious, and there was maybe like one action scene. It was just kind of a lot of, you know, self self sort of pleasuring lore building and underdog story. I feel like if you just wrote like hey Chat GPT, write me a story about an underdog, but make it really progressive, this would have been what happened. So it was not good. It was quite tedious, and I don't know what anyone saw in it. I really thought it kind of sucked, but what do I know? I'm just a guy who, you know, I'm just a guy. Um, Slightly ahead of Monkey Man was Joker 2, the whatever it was with Lady Gaga. Really did sort of feel like a middle finger to like superhero movies in general, where it's like they had this big hit with Todd Phillips being just sort of a great visual storyteller in the first one, and it was just sort of like, hey, what if we did exactly the same thing but the opposite, and we undid everything that people liked about the first one, but it still looked cool. And he went from being sort of this, you know, anti-hero that you root for, to just being like pathetic. And I guess in a way it's kind of a good thing, clearly they're not making any more. But I remember at the end of the first one, one of my friends' complaints was like, so I'm supposed to believe that he's like 40 years older than Batman. Like, how does that line up at all? And then, they sort of resolve that at the end of the film. So I guess in a way it's kind of good, but just a really beautifully shot film that just didn't say or do anything. It really was, I felt like, kind of a slap in the face to the people who liked the first one. So if that's what they were going for, cool, but kind of crappy thing to do. Next up, Oddity. Some really cool moments. I loved the performance of the girl who played the two sisters. I don't know what her name was, but she was fantastic. Unfortunately, I thought sort of the twist was really predictable, and it was a really interesting premise that was just taken in like the worst possible direction. I didn't want like a murder mystery. I wanted like a weird gothic, sort of surreal horror story, and it just was not what we got at all. Sort of a spoiler, I guess, but there's this sort of scene between the lead and sort of the brother-in-law that almost sort of bookends the main story with this sort of gift that she gives him, introduced at the very beginning of the film, and at the end of the film he sort of opens this gift, and it sort of is like holding on this shot of him kind of being like, do I believe this supernatural nonsense or not? And it was just one of those like M. Night Shyamalan things where I'm like, just end it, end it, end it, end it, end it. Like, you don't need to explain this. Like, leave the tension there. You don't need to resolve this. Let the audience be sort of in this character's shoes of sort of wondering a little bit. And it's sort of, had they done that, it would have sort of been like I don't know, like a Nocturnal Animals or something, where it's like you don't really get the next scene because you don't want to know the next scene. You kind of want that cliffhanger that's unresolved, and it sort of gives you that anxiety like the character on screen feels. And of course, after just bad decision in the film, not by the characters, just in filmmaking, of course they add that extra 5 seconds of footage that just sort of undid the whole subtlety of that sort of through line, and really really just disappointing. I thought it looked like a really interesting film, and outside of that main performance, I was just like, man, I just did not care at all. Like, I just really disappointed. So that's Oddity, unfortunately. Next up, Speak No Evil. I'm convinced James McAvoy is like maybe the most underrated actor right now. I've only seen him in a couple things, but he just constantly steals the show. He's just a very charming man, and it was unfortunate that this movie just sucked completely. There is a good movie in here somewhere. There's a really good movie about a couple, and sort of maybe there's been an affair going on, and there's this sort of tension that just sort of is lingering. And that movie is called Straw Dogs, and that was what this movie wanted to be. It wanted to sort of tease at this sort of unease that this couple is feeling, and sort of how they respond to it, and sort of what that next step forward looks like in the relationship. And then obviously in Straw Dogs, it sort of comes across as them versus like these sort of, Dustin Hoffman sort of versus these local thugs, and sort of what it means to, almost like realize what it is for him to be a man in this relationship. But in this one, it's just, hey, also there's a spooky couple and they abduct kids, and it's really hard to sympathize with a main character who's as stupid as the husband. I think, if I'm not mistaken, it was Scoot McNairy, which is a hilarious name. Every decision he makes in the story, you're just like, dude, leave. And every time he doesn't leave, he puts his family in more danger. There's like 8 endings to this movie that could have happened where he and his family get away safely. And every time he's like, oh, well, I don't want to be rude, but let's give him the benefit of the doubt. Let's say goodbye before we leave. We don't want to seem ungrateful. And it's like, dude, your family's about to get murdered. Like, leave. Use your head. And he just is such like a weenie the whole movie. And yeah, I really did actually think that the sort of tension between him and the wife was really well done. And obviously James McAvoy's just fantastic. But other than that, just really an underwhelming. I don't know if this was a Blumhouse or if it just stole the Blumhouse sort of template of tease at a movie that's way better, but then don't explore it. So yeah, that was Speak No Evil, and yeah, just really not for me. Next up, Alien, was it Romulus, I think? Really liked the world building. Second half was kind of whatever. Didn't really care that much, but at least the first half was really fantastic. Just this sort of like, everything was so dour and like really like space post-apocalypse. Like, that's what it felt like. I don't know. Very almost like Mad Max in space is kind of what it felt like, which was awesome. And then you get introduced to the actual alien, and didn't really bring a ton to the story. I did like the really tall dude at the end. I didn't realize I actually knew who that, not personally, but I know who that guy was. I know he was like sort of he's like almost 8 feet tall. He's like, I think he was a basketball player, but I think he retired from basketball and now he just acts as tall guy in random movies. But yeah, that was really unsettling when he shows up at the very end, but still just mostly loved the first half. Second half was meh, but yeah, liked it a bit. Wasn't blown away, wasn't, didn't love it. Next up, Longlegs. I know there's some movies above it that you're probably going to be like, how on earth did you like that more than Longlegs? And the answer is because I'm not an idiot. I loved Black Coat's Daughter. I thought that movie was fantastic, and I feel like the parts of the movie that were Oz Perkins were just excellent, and the parts of the movie that were Nick Cage were bad. I know some people are sort of in the camp that Nick Cage is like maybe the most underrated actor because he just consistently takes bad material and elevates it. But I saw, at the end of the film, looking at sort of the end credits, and I saw like produced by Nick Cage, and it made sense. He just has a certain touch when it comes to like his hand, being in movies, and the parts I really didn't care for in the film, I felt like he was responsible for. That might be unfair. That's just sort of my trying to make connections, I guess, in my brain. Good performances. I liked him a lot in the film. I like Nick Cage. I mean, main actress, I can't remember her name, but she was excellent. I've liked her in everything I've seen her in. Some really unsettling scenes that I liked, and some just gorgeous visuals. I think Oz Perkins really has like a great eye for visual storytelling, and sort of sprinkling allegory in throughout his story. But I just felt like you get to about maybe the midpoint, and certainly sort of the end scene, which ironically a little reminiscent of Psycho, have like this film and then have the last scene be like just a guy explaining what you just saw in case you didn't get it, which is pretty disappointing. But the sort of rationale, the sort of, I don't know, like evil, I don't know, culty serial killer, whatever it was supposed to be, was pretty underwhelming. I would have preferred Nick Cage as like, I don't know, if this went like a direction of like a Blue Velvet where it just got really weird and surreal, I would have been ecstatic. But I felt like it explained way too much, and the things it was explaining were just not interesting. So, if I had made this list a couple of months ago, it probably went a lot. Long Legs would have probably been a lot higher, but unfortunately, that's not the case. So, visually great, Nick Cage great, acting great. Just that story, just by the end, I was like, come on, like that was just the best you could do. Was like a wrapping the story up, I guess. Just real frustrating. Frustrating watch. That's the word. It's just a frustrating watch. Next up, we're down to how many got left? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7-ish. Inside Out 2. Inside Out 2 is sandwiched between two. It's very, very different from the films that it's sandwiched between. But Inside Out 2, just not. I think this is the first Pixar movie I've watched in probably 10 years. But just good. I liked it. I laughed some. Was sad at parts. Just kind of what you'd expect for just a normal Pixar movie. Not as good as the first one. Thought the first one was kind of overrated, but it was pretty good. I don't know. That's pretty much it. It was just pretty good. That should have been on the poster. Inside Out 2. It's pretty good. Next up, I can't believe I'm saying this. Smile 2. I did not finish the first Smile. I really thought it was just stupid. But I was really kind of interested in, the sort of setting that this main character was in, sort of being like a pop star, and I don't know, just the setting was pretty interesting to me, and so I was between that and Terrifier 3, which I didn't see, and I don't really regret it. Went with this, and the parts of Smile 2 that I loved were everything not related to the Smile Demon, and the parts I did not like were all the parts related to the Smile Demon. I thought this was a fantastic story, kind of exploring like addiction and some really sort of just really dark moments with this character, and sort of spoilers, I guess. It's kind of at the beginning. Sort of the inciting incident is that this main character is sort of a singer on her comeback tour. She was fantastic, by the way. She was really good. This singer sort of on a comeback tour after this car crash, and her boyfriend dies, and she's got to get clean, and it's sort of she ends up going to meet with a drug dealer, and the drug dealer is where she gets the smile demon, passed on to her. And a lot of the story is just sort of her struggle to, like, do I try to expose this thing and get help and lose my career for good, or do I sort of like hold this in and take that risk? Which, again, I know Smile is sort of supposed to be like an allegory for like mental health, and sort of shifting from just generally like mental health to like specifically substance abuse. Definitely more engaging. I just thought it worked. I thought the not Smile stuff worked really well. Just sort of her anxiety and the sort of coping mechanisms that she has to rely on. She's just a really interesting character to see on screen, and the actress, I don't know who she was, but she nailed it. She was great. There's some really like dark moments that I feel like I felt legitimately bad for her. I'm like, I don't know what I would do in this situation. Some pretty lame jump scares that were just ungodly loud in theaters, just completely unacceptable. Smile Demon, not as interesting as in the first one, which, by the way, like I said, I didn't finish the first one. I only know that scene because I saw it on YouTube. Looked pretty cool though, cool monster design. This one, not nearly as cool. And then the only other thing that stuck out was that the guy who played the boyfriend, I guess, is Jack Nicholson's son, looked eerily like Charlie Kirk. And it was very distracting because I was just picturing Charlie Kirk taking a break from talking to, lecturing kids on a college campus to starring in a movie like that. It made me laugh. But yeah, so R.I.P. Charlie Kirk. R.I.P. Smile Girl. You did a good job, and I wish this was a Smile movie without the Smile elements, because I think it would have been really fascinating. Next up, Late Night with the Devil. I think technically it was a 2023. I saw it in theaters this year. I really had fun with it. It's not perfect. There's definitely some things that were sort of overlooked in terms of like the documentary style, where it sort of breaks that premise that it sets out, that's like, oh, this is like, this sort of like unedited footage of this news show, or of this late night show and whatnot. Some kind of cheesy effects, some sort of on the nose characters, but it just was just a really unique story, and I loved how surreal it got at the end. I also love when a movie can sort of tease at Bohemian Grove, because I always think that's really funny. I just sort of loved. Oh, spoiler! I'm sorry. Spoiler if you haven't seen it. Yeah, the ending just gets really weird and surreal, and I don't know. I just had a lot of fun. Like, not a perfect movie, definitely a good movie. Yeah, just a movie I was glad I saw in theaters, and it made me happy to see it on screen. Yeah, I had a lot of fun with that one. My biggest surprise of the year, First Omen. I went to see this knowing nothing. I was kind of blown away. The opening scene is like a pretty obvious, I don't even know if you call it an homage, just sort of almost like a blatant ripoff of like earlier Omen movie. And I was like, oh no, like that's not the precedent we're setting, I hope. And then just some really good performances, some really intense moments that like kind of blew me away. A girl freaking out, sort of reminiscent of Possession. If you know that scene. Just I was just shocked like how dark it got, and those movies, I just sort of bet on the fact that I see a movie like that, I'm like, it's gonna rip off the original, slightly change it, and then we'll get Vincent D'Onofrio showing up and being like, oh, this is Bejewel, or whatever his name is, Bedazzle, whatever his name is, Gabagool, and it never really happened. It was just kind of consistent, like darker scenes, and by the end I was like kind of uncomfortable. It doesn't happen a lot seeing a horror movie in theaters, but I was like, oh my gosh. You see a demon hand come out of a lady's snatch. That was pretty sweet. Just some really intense moments, and some really great moments of tension, and just like actual dread that I felt watching it. Ending, again, could have been one scene shorter. I would have been fine with that. But yeah, just kind of blown away. I was really surprised that I liked it as much as I did. All right, we're in our top four. I should have probably said top five, but now we're at number four from the top. So I guess brief drum roll or something. I don't know. The Substance. Super kind of movie I like. I love body horror. I this movie took things that I didn't like and played them up so much that I just couldn't help but laugh. Namely, like the end scene, there was just it was so ridiculous. I could not stop laughing, and I really had fun with that movie. Seeing that in theaters, yeah, again, I was just sort of cackling in the theaters just watching that one. Great performances again. Only things I didn't really like when Dennis Quaid was on screen, that sort of angle where it's just him constantly chewing or his teeth being all like weird and yellow and you know nicotine stained. I don't know, just a little on the nose. I know what they were doing, but I was kind of like, okay, like we get it. Like I know exactly what this guy is supposed to be. You don't have to, double down and show his character and do this like, you know, stupid visual thing. Like we all see it. We all see this character. Started a little bit slow. There was just a little bit of, I don't know, sort of like on the nose imagery in some scenes that I thought could have been cut. Like, like Demi Moore just sort of freaking out, and she sort of like she throws like a snow globe or something, and it just like hits her picture in the face and cracks. I'm like, oh, okay, like we get it. We understand what this character is, and so I felt like, I don't know, probably a good 10 minutes or so could have been cut from the film, just sort of scenes that sort of reiterated things that the audience already knew. But yeah, just fun and weird and gross and like legitimately unsettling at some points. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. So would highly recommend The Substance, and don't take things for granted. Number 3, I will defend this movie till I die. I thought Civil War was great. It seemed like one that people were kind of split on. I saw it with my dad, and he was like, "Yeah, it was good." And then like a month later, I was like, "Hey, remember Civil War?" And he goes, "Yeah, the movie sucked." so I don't know what to do with that. But there's a spider. The biggest critique that I two of them, I guess, that I heard from people both in person and online. One, that it was sold as like an action movie, and it wasn't. Which, fair. I don't know how much Alex Garland and company sort of had to do with the promotional material. So yeah, I think that's a fair criticism. It really is not an action movie. The other one, though, was that Alex Garland just sort of uses the story to sort of like almost glorify like journalists as being like the real heroes in the story. I don't agree with that. And I also thought the criticism I heard that basically it wasn't political enough. Like, it didn't call out a side of the political aisle for being the ones who would be likely to start a civil war, that was like somehow a bad thing. I thought that was really stupid. And I can kind of answer both. I can kind of respond to both those critiques in the same way. I felt like this film was almost a direct response to like both people like, and I'm sorry, this is going to get a little bit political. I'm sorry. I felt that this film was sort of a response to people on sort of both sides of the political aisle who are sort of teasing at like a civil war. Both people who were sort of like the Chaz or whatever that was, sort of, separatists, and like the Boogaloo Boys sort of on the opposite side of the aisle, where it's sort of this like really like aggressively politicized. I think it sort of kind of calls out people on both sides of the aisle who sort of are teasing at the fact that like, oh, maybe if we had a civil war it wouldn't be so bad, or maybe the good guys would win and then we could do what we wanted with the country. I felt like the sort of photography journalism angle was just the most was sort of the medium that would be the most objective in the situation. Kirsten Dunst is basically like not a part of either side. She's just taking pictures. And I felt like that sort of works as like a, hey, I'm not pointing at either side, but if you want to talk about what this is going to look like to sort of have another civil war, this is what you're looking at. You're looking at these, journalists and these elites sort of being safe here. You're looking at people on the ground being murdered over here. You're looking at the Jesse Plemons scene, which was like legitimately upsetting. You're looking at psychopaths being over here. And I just felt like that sort of perspective of sort of saying that, like, hey, this journalist is sort of the most in the middle of the action we would get. I was okay with that. Again, it's not an action film. It's really not, there's not a lot of action scenes. There's not a lot of like shooting or fighting or anything. It's more sort of the isolation and the frustration and sort of the sadness that is sort of, that you'd sort of expect if a country went to war with itself, like the U.S., like such a vast country with so many different like people and so many different geographic sort of, terrain and stuff like that. I felt like this was a sort of peek into what that would look like, and I thought Alex Garland did a great job. I love Alex Garland's work. Loved Ex Machina, saw it multiple times. Loved Annihilation, probably my favorite thing he's done. I don't know. It was just a gorgeous film. The dude can tell a story visually, like he's like, I would say, one of the best visual storytellers out there right now. Just looked gorgeous. The action scenes when they were there were great. Some really captivating characters, some really sad moments, some really strategic moments of levity that show up. I really enjoyed it. Actually, I just bought a copy of it today. I was very happy, and I understand all the criticisms. I'm not saying people are wrong, but I just don't agree. I thought it was pretty interesting and pretty insightful, and more than anything, just a great, captivating, visually wonderful story. So that's my little rant on Civil War. I enjoyed it a lot. Again, do what you want with it. If you thought it was pretentious and annoying, totally fine. I'm okay with that. My number 2, I just saw about 2 weeks ago, Saturday night. Really kind of floored by this movie. I had maybe 2 nitpicks. I thought the I don't know what you call it, like standards and practices or whatever it was that lady was supposed to be was like way too on the nose. Like, maybe it's a real person, but sometimes you put a character in a story and people go, there's no way that's a real person, and it sort of ruins the story. Even if it's a real person, still ruining a story. Just sort of seemed like an unnecessary sort of subplot that really just I thought was annoying. And then actually that was kind of my main complaint, was just sort of that subplot. I thought the guy who played Andy Kaufman was fantastic. Him on screen just made me laugh. Dude who played Aykroyd, fantastic. Dude who played Chevy Chase, fantastic. J.K. Simmons, I wanted to strangle. He was such an incredible villain. I really can't stand Milton Berle. And from everything I've read, that would be something he would do. I don't want to spoil anything. He shows up and is just, a real, just, he's just a real turd in this movie. Willem Dafoe played Willem Dafoe. He was fun. Oh, Willem Dafoe's in my top 2 movies. Cool. Other than that, I didn't really see a lot of promotional material for this, and it was only in theaters for like a week, but if you don't know, it's just basically the story of trying to get SNL off the ground and what the sort of nightmare that they had trying to, shoot the first episode, and just everything that went wrong. And and it's kind of from Lorne Michaels' perspective. So I had a lot of fun, and I laughed a lot, especially at the dude who played Chevy Chase. I thought he just nailed it. I wish I could talk more about some of the other characters. Unfortunately, that's not really my era of SNL. I'm not really a big SNL fan, just in general. But I love Chevy Chase. He's in a lot of my favorite comedies, and really kind of can't stand Belushi or Aykroyd, but I thought both their actors did really well. I thought the George Carlin dude was pretty funny. I don't know, I just go watch it. I don't know what to tell you. I just thought it was really great, and I just would highly recommend it. Everyone kind of killed it, and my nitpicks were just little things that didn't really I just felt like didn't really add anything to the story. I guess before I get to number one, things that or things I guess that I might have missed. I said Dune 2. Let me do some research for a second. So I'm currently looking at Rotten Tomatoes best movies of the year, and I've heard of none of these. So I'm going to assume that I didn't miss anything crazy. Wild Robot, wasn't going to see that. Late Night with the Devil, number 18. All right. I really haven't heard of like almost any of these. I'll be honest, really quick. I didn't see Oddity, number 29. Good lord, that's no. Okay, all right. Let's get to a real list. Didn't see Furiosa. Didn't see. Not seeing Wicked. I'm sorry. Didn't see Challengers, but I heard really great things. Didn't see Deadpool. Deadpool Wolverine. Wanted to see Love Lies Bleeding. Didn't get to. Not gonna watch Gladiator 2. I'm sorry. I heard Hitman was good. Didn't see it. I will drink bleach before I watch another Planet of the Apes movie. Didn't see Abigail. Looked pretty fun though. Really looking forward to Nosferatu, but we still got a little bit of time until that happens. So, nothing else really coming to mind that I missed. I guess I'll go ahead and get to number one. Not the best movie I've seen ever. Technically not the best movie I saw this year. But I had a blast watching Beetlejuice. I laughed so hard. It was like 8 movies crammed into one. And normally I think that would be sort of disorienting, but somehow they made it work. My expectations were real low for this. I thought I was going to see Michael Keaton be Michael Keaton, which I did briefly. But what I got was, like I said, like 8 movies combined. I got a I got to see a Soul Train that just turned into a musical number that made me laugh my ass off. I got to see I got to see them kill off Jeffrey Jones in the funniest way possible, which if you don't know what's happened to Jeffrey Jones over the last few years, I'm not going to explain it, but you can look it up. But the way they killed him was hilarious, and Michael Keaton, fantastic. No Gina Davis, no Alec Baldwin, but I thought all the characters that were there were really good. I thought Winona Ryder was really good. Only complaint, was it Justin Theroux? I don't remember who was playing like sort of the boyfriend character, but he was pretty on the nose and kind of hated him almost too much. But just like weird musical numbers I wasn't expecting. There's sort of a through line of MacArthur Park, and it worked really well. Willem Dafoe shows up for a bit. Danny DeVito shows up for one scene. Monica Bellucci doesn't really do anything that's sort of consequence, but she's kind of a fun sort of villain that shows up for a bit. Just weird and like just crammed full of jokes. I'm sorry. I was kind of floored by how much fun I had with that movie. Just that would be my word. It's just fun. It's a super fun movie, and if you're looking to watch something that'll make you laugh really hard, that would be what I would suggest. So, yeah, that was my list. I probably missed some stuff, but yeah, I hope you all had a great 2024 and 2023. And I don't know if I'll be making a lot of videos in the future, but we'll see. All right, thanks, guys.